You say you want the championship culture, but are you putting your oxygen mask on first and bringing positive energy and fun into every room, or quietly draining it? With Tim Dumas, I challenge old success stories, contrast energy givers with energy drainers, and explore how magnanimity and intentional mission can spark the renaissance of shared flourishing you say you're longing for. Like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and DM Future to continue the conversation. My name is Arjan Visser, human centered futurist, and your host. Tim, welcome to the All Journey podcast.
Arjan, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
I'm excited about what we are going to discover and reveal to ourselves, talking about the topic that's so close to our heart. And I wanted to start actually with a what if question. What if personal growth doesn't just demand that we dream bigger, but that we redefine what success actually means and how we measure it?
Well, success is a very interesting word. I have a great friend and mentor named Alexandra Havard, who wrote a book that was incredibly inspirational and impactful for me, called Virtuous Leadership. And I talked to him about success over lunch one day. He said, Tim, I really don't like the word success because in our world, success often means, worldly success, money, etc. And we often don't talk about the greater impact that we could have as human beings. And I said, that's really interesting, Alex, but so what, how would we define this then? And what should we be talking about? And Alex loves this word called magnanimity. He even wrote a book with a subtitle, The Power of Magnanimity. And I said to him, I said, Alex, I don't know what magnanimity means. He
I
said, well,
second
Tim,
that one. Yes.
well, I didn't know what it meant. And initially, I had even more trouble saying the word magna what? And so over lunch, he explained to me, he said, Tim, magnanimity is defined as the spirit of striving for greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. It's the spirit of striving for greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. And Arjun, could you imagine if everyone on the planet lived by that mantra? If in every interaction we look to strive for greatness ourselves first, so that we then can bring out the greatness in others, in the people in our families, the people we work with, the people that we meet on the street. And then is that not really the greatest version of success?
That is actually an interesting word in itself, greatness. If I think of the word greatness, I think of word of alignment to who you are, who you're created to be, and who you are becoming. So it is that place of design, authenticity, and you being truly you. And I really love that perspective on success because so many people out there think of success is something they need to comply to, that measures that they outperform someone else. It becomes a place of competition. I can only win if you lose. And greatness is the opposite because you're going to win when I win. And because I win, you win. And before we know it, becomes this upward spiral of who we are and how we can just enjoy life.
You, you're right. It's a very interesting way of looking at it. It's a way of looking at it from abundance, right? How can we build all of each other up? And if we build each other up, how does that build up the society as a whole? How does that build up in a business? How does that build up our industry as a whole? I had a very interesting conversation about a decade ago. I was in a business and we had there was another business you would consider a loose competitor of ours, and I got a call from the CEO of this business. And he said, "Tim, let's talk." And at this time in my life, I thought that was strange. I'm like, why would two competitors talk? And he sat down with me over coffee. He said, Tim, if there's one thing I've learned, he said, if we work together to grow our industry, it's going to be much better for us than if we if we fight against each other to tear each other down. He said, why don't we work together to build our industry up? And from that day forward, from that one small interaction, that helped change my whole mindset to why don't we look to build each other up? Why don't we look to work together in our industry to have greatness within our industry, which builds up the whole industry as a whole? And this is just in the business world. When we look in the personal world, it happens even more, or it should happen even more, because there's less competition in trying to be the best husband or father or wife or mother. We're all just trying to be the best in our own way. But if there's one way that people can do this, Arjun, that often they forget about, it would be this. And this comes again from some of my work with a good friend, Alex Hubbard. And he wrote a book called Discover Your Mission. And do you know when I travel around and do keynotes and talks, I often do them to business organizations, people in a business. And when I asked them, I said, how many of your businesses have a mission statement? 95+% of people put up their hand. We all have mission statements in our business. But when I ask people to put up their hand to tell me how many of them have a personal mission statement, uh, like 95% of the hands go down. And, if we're really looking to describe greatness for ourselves, to describe success for ourselves, do we not need that mission statement of where we're looking to go?
That's a really valuable point. Like, what's my mission statement personally? And using also the language of greatness, it's not a mission statement. I want to be the best. I want to beat the competition. So the whole dimension of there's lack and it needs to be divided, and I will have to have more on my end than yours. That's not part of the whole discussion. That's not part of the whole mindset. So even the mission statement, what does it hold? And I think there is so much in my mission statement connected to my intrinsic motivation, because they're all elements of that all come together and are the glue of what's the mission I'm on.
And the thing about mission statements, even in businesses, mission statements never or should never be about money. They really aren't about, um, physical things. Mission statements are more about impact. And you even look about businesses, I understand in businesses that the goal of a business is generally to make more money. That's really the outcome. The how you live the mission of how you impact the world around you by the product or the service you sell. That's how you're living your mission. And the scoreboard, as if it were a game, is could be the money. If our business will do better financially if we live our mission better at impacting people in the world. And then, look at individuals. And it's all about the impact we give on the world. Our mission statement is really at the end of our days, when they're writing on our tombstone, those 15 words about how we lived our life and who we impacted and what we left in this world. It's really not about things. It's about the people that we impacted.
Yeah, I like that. So it is in a way, it is understanding who I'm called to be, who I'm becoming. It's understanding my purpose, but they're all in a way the frameworks. And the mission is, how is that applied? How is that put into action in a way for someone else to be on the receiving end? And that's how we measure our impact. It's how our maturity is received by others, and for them it makes the difference.
And really, that's something that we work on day in and day out every day. I love sports analogies. And in sports, we win some games and we lose some games. And we play well sometimes and we don't play as well sometimes. And it's the same thing in life. If we wake up every morning and we read our mission statement, or we're really clear on what our mission is to do, um, then we're going to be more intentional during the day about how to do that. And there's going to be days where I try to do something and it doesn't work. But guess what happens when it doesn't work? I'm going to learn what doesn't work. So tomorrow I'm going to try something different. It's just like learning to ride a bike. One of the greatest tragedies, I think, in our world is how much we hate failure. And don't get me wrong, I don't like failure any more than anyone else in the moment. But I do like what failure teaches me, because I learn a heck of a lot more when I fail than when I succeed, because I look at it that evening or the next day and say, why did I fail at this small thing or the big thing I was looking to achieve today? And how will I change what I'm going to do tomorrow? I've done some work with Jim Collins, and some of you know him. He wrote the book Good to Great. And he said, in organizations, businesses and not-for-profits alike, he said, the one thing companies fail to do generally, which would greatly impact their version of success and greatness, is they often fail to confront the brutal facts of where they are today to succeed in the end. And that's part of the Stockdale paradox. Confront the brutal facts today with unwavering faith. Number two, you'll succeed in the end, and do the things you need to do today and tomorrow to do that. Yet most companies shield themselves and shield their people from the brutal facts because they're afraid that they will be too brutal. They're afraid that people will lose heart because there has been some failure. They fear that, and that's the fear that's keeping them from greatness, because until we confront the brutal facts, not only in our lives, in our companies, in our world, and look for ways to overcome them, we won't overcome them and will struggle to achieve absolute greatness.
Before we started the recording, you shared a little bit about being a champion and a championship. And listening to you in what you just shared, I it's not hard to imagine that our listeners, and even including me, think like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not what I see around sports in general, because we bash the losers and we don't celebrate the other team players their success easily because we are jealous. And at the end, it doesn't. The means don't matter. The result means. So, but what you just explained is actually a much higher game to play, and I think the game is called life. But let's try to make it a little bit more accessible and not step into the trap to make it easy, because there's so much human interaction, and the moment it's easy, we know we miss the point. But actually, you are already defining what it means to be a champion, because it's not the achievement, it's more the virtue of being great in both your thinking, your heart, which will overflow in your behavior and your actions. Am I right?
You're absolutely right, um, because it is about the mindset. And when you look at a sports game, if you ever watch the interviews with a team after a championship, they typically talk about the relationships they've built, the fun they've had together. They talk about the hard days leading up to that championship game or the playoffs, where they've been in the weight room together or been on the court together working hard, or on the field, or however they do their training. They talk about the process and how great that has been and how that has molded them. Ironically, whether they won or lost the last game, their mindset was still the same going in. And a championship mindset certainly will prepare you to win. Uh, but a championship mindset is just that, it prepares you to win. It doesn't mean that we win at all costs or in all circumstances. And this is coming from me in the world of sports. I'm probably as competitive as they come. Don't get me wrong. I want to win. But in the game of life, there's not necessarily a winner and a loser in the game of life. As opposed to sports, we can have double winners. We can all win and build each other up. And isn't that really what we're trying to do when we do live in sport. When I coach high school kids in high school football, it's about building them up to be better people. And there's a few things about building a championship mindset, and I won't get into all of them in our short time together today, but I will highlight a few. And so having a championship mindset starts with what I call your oxygen mask first. And there's a great book written by a colleague of mine named Kevin Lawrence. He wrote this book, Your Oxygen Mask First. And my company is called Service Leadership. Service is the Latin word for servant. And when I read his book initially, I said, Kevin, I don't like it. Sorry, not when I read it, when I read the title. I said, I don't like it. He said, why? I said, well, your oxygen mask first, it sounds selfish. He goes, read the book, Tim. You'll realize it's not selfish. And what I realized then, his book, Your Oxygen Mask First, is really talking about that first part of the definition of magnanimity, striving for greatness yourself. And then you can bring out the greatness in others. But putting my oxygen mask on first is striving for greatness myself. Because if I don't strive for it myself, everybody's going to look at me and they're going to be like, you don't do any of this stuff yourself, Tim. How can I be led by a guy that doesn't even try to do it yourself? Remember, I said striving for greatness myself. I didn't say being great myself. There's a difference in those two things. Obviously, if I strive more and more, I have a better chance of becoming great. But it's about striving for greatness. And so when I read that book, Your Oxygen Mask First, I realized, when you're in a plane, they tell you, put your oxygen mask on first before you help the person beside you. Because if you don't put it on first, you will pass out and both of you will perish. So when I thought about that, I'm like, I really got to work on myself so I can be the best person I can be to impact the people around me. So if you only ask me one thing about what could positively impact, what could bring us a championship mindset, it's that understanding that I need to work on myself day after day. I need to chisel that myself, away and make that most beautiful piece of artwork to first put my oxygen mask on first so I can be magnanimous for others.
Yeah. And actually, another word for putting your oxygen mask on first is personal growth. I speak frequently with business leaders who want more growth in their business. And I explain business growth is actually you're putting two things together, but let's first separate them. It's personal growth and business development. And your business will develop as an expression of your personal growth. But we tend to not do our personal growth for whatever the agenda is, the push, the urgency, the operational pressure. But when we want to grow and we want the way out, we need to focus on our personal growth. Another way to look at it is if you're not working on reducing your blind spot, then the people that you so much value in your business, in your inner circle, in your family, you keep asking them to suffer from your blind spot. And let's be real, like our blind spot is enormous and people can disappear in it. So we will do them a huge favor if we reduce their blind spot so that they are not in a survival mode, but actually have fun, which is actually a word you used before, fun. And I still wrestle with AI. And today I asked AI a question: how does rest and play, which I think are huge ingredients for having fun, how do they play part in that tension of stepping up in my leadership and just restoring? Because making mistakes, learning, it is exhausting. So you need to bounce back, recover. And AI kept telling me, well, you need to take rest and play to restore. And I thought, wait a minute, I need rest and play to step up as a leader too, to increase my impact, to create value for others that is authentically mine. I need to be in a place of rest and in a playful mindset. AI didn't get me, which tells me, I think, more about AI than about me. But I just want to bring that up. How does rest and play contribute in finding our greatness, striving for our greatness, and being our authentic self for others, that they get into that place, that they release their greatness?
Well, one of the I'll talk about play first. One of the um, great fallacies that we have in the business world and the work world, for that matter, is that if we're having fun, we can't work hard, which is actually completely the opposite. If you look at one of the greatest examples of this happened in sports, there's a semi-pro baseball team in Savannah, Georgia, in the United States called the Savannah Bananas. And they did a study that all they were going to work on is having fun as a team. Sorry, not all they were going to work on. They were still going to work on skills, but they focused especially on having fun. They did a study at Georgia Southern University, a local university. And the study they found was that players, when they came to this Savannah Bananas minor league baseball team, when players came to this team, they performed better. And the only difference they could find between this team and other teams was that there was a massive focus on having fun. And it was almost seen as being less serious, but it wasn't. They were still working to win. They were just having fun. So what they did was they proved that having fun, you do better work when you're having fun. And if you think back to the great workplaces you've been, the great teams that you've been in, the great organizations, maybe it was some kind of group you were in high school or in university. If you think about those great organizations you were in, I'll bet you had a lot of fun. And I'll bet you had a lot of fun while you were doing hard work. I think back to my time I was stocking shelves at a store early in my career that I was working at. And it was before Christmas, and we got this like 20 pallet order, this massive order that we had to put away. And we had like a short period of time to put it away before the store closed. And that's the time I look back as one of the most fun times I ever worked there, because we were laughing and joking and running and lifting up these big boxes to put them away. But we were having a lot of fun, and we did great work because we had a lot of fun. And most leaders don't think about that in their championship mindset, because bringing positive energy and fun is one of the other aspects of having a championship mindset. Bringing great energy and bringing great fun into your organization will grow your organization. It will set your organization up for great growth. So what I'd ask each of you to think about is, what am I doing today to bring fun and energy into the workplace I'm at, into my family, into my relationships, into any other organization that I'm a part of? There's two types of people in this world as it relates to energy. And author John Gordon talked about this in his book, The Energy Bus. He said there's energy givers, and he calls them energy vampires. And Arjun, you've probably seen both. Have you ever walked into a room for a meeting and there's maybe 6 or 8 people in the room for a meeting, and another person walks in, and all of a sudden the conversation stops and all the energy gets sucked out of the room only by this person walking in? That person's an energy vampire.
Yeah.
There's also people that walk into a room, they don't say a thing, they don't do a thing, and the room lights up. Those are energy givers. And so the challenge I give to each of you is to think about, what can I do to make my environment more fun? And what can I do to breathe energy into all the people that I interact with today?
One of my kids has very high emotional intelligence, and he has to be aware how he enters a room, because it doesn't matter how he enters, the people will turn to him. When he is aware that he can lift other people up, he is like a star. He shines a bright light people get to a higher level of energy. When he is not aware of him and he had some, well, I would nearly say he was not thinking the right things about himself, he enters the room like a black hole and he sucks all the energy out. So even that, it's two types of role. In a way, it's not two types of people, it's two types of role, and it has so much to do with, in his case, with his personal growth, the self-awareness, the embodiment of what he is thinking and believing. So when we talk about it, is the being, the virtue of being, with how you think and how you feel, that is actually, those are the power tools for you to frame how you enter a room. And if you contribute, release your greatness for others to lean on the greatness for the piece of greatness they are still lacking, or if you just dare to just rob all the small bits and pieces of greatness to fill your own hole. And before we wrap up, how can people get in contact with you, get hold of your time, your wisdom?
Sure, it's a fantastic connect with anyone. An easy way to connect is through LinkedIn. So you can find me at Tim Dumas on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. Secondly, you can go to my website, which is serviceleadership.com. Service is spelled Servus, the Latin word for servant. On my website, you'll find ways to get a hold of me via phone, via email, and certainly anyone listening to this podcast, I would love to connect with.
I will make sure that these details, the LinkedIn connection and your website, are in the details, the description of our podcast. And I really encourage people to just check out Tim and connect with him. Tim, to bring it to not to closure, but to the next height of our time together. I've been playing with the terminology around what is a renaissance. And I truly believe that it connects to what you have been sharing, where you said it's about oxygen mask first, finding my greatness so other people can find their greatness. Other languages, I have to find out where I flourish. And flourishing has so much to do with who I am and who I am becoming. But at the end of the day, we want to meet other people that flourish. So, and we start to sustain each other's flourishing. And other word for flourishing could be well-being, uh, creating value for each other, giving expression with our creativity of who we are. And then at the end, I dream of a society, a creative age, where it starts to flourish between people. And I think that's what history recalls when it talks about the Renaissance that we had in society, which was a great blessing for the whole of society. But at the end of the day, society is you and me. So how does the striving for greatness gives us a tool that we can use to go forward and enter a creative age where we start to flourish together?
So this is a question we could talk about all day as well, but I'll answer it in one short way. But first of all, before I answer it, in our short time together on this podcast today, we went through 2 of the 10 aspects of building a championship culture. So we very just briefly touched upon your oxygen mask first, and then positive energy and having fun in the workplace. So I'd be happy to talk to anyone about the other 8 aspects, which we touched upon a little bit in this, but not specifically. Um, and so please connect with me. As it relates to your question about how do we build a renaissance, if I could only put it into one phrase, it would be, Stephen Covey and Jim Collins use this phrase, begin with the end in mind. And most people in the world, we struggle to begin with the end in mind. And that's looking far out, looking, at the end of my life, what impact do I want to have had? And how do I build that back to today and do day after day after day the things that are going to get me to having the impact that I want to have? Businesses do this all the time with, they call it big, hairy, audacious goal. Where does our business want to be in 25 years? And what do we want to do today and tomorrow and the next day? What do we need to do to get there in 25 years? Yet looking, decades down the road can be very scary. But if you think about it, that's really the only way we can achieve any greatness. I don't know if you remember when you were learning to drive a car. When I was learning to drive a car, my instructor sat beside me and said, "Tim, look far ahead of you, because if you look just over the dashboard, when you're too far right or left in the lane, you'll course correct way too far right or way too far left. But if you're thinking far, far ahead, your course corrections will be very small and they will lead you to your ultimate goal of getting where you want to be in the car." It's exactly the same in life or in an organization. Where do I want to be in that long term? And then how do I make those small course corrections day after day to stay on that path? And if we simply did that, it's just that one small thing, that would be the first step to leading us towards that renaissance that you speak of.
Absolutely. What are the three things that we revealed today? You already repeated a little bit, but what stood out for you that you think I should actually apply it more in my life?
Well, if you haven't heard that word magnanimity before, that word changed my life. And so just knowing the definition of that word, that striving for greatness by bringing out the greatness in others, it's not something it's something that probably you already do, but just knowing that word will help focus even more. Number one. Number two, finding ways to have fun in everything that we do, because greatness happens when we're having fun. Um, we bring more energy to the conversation. And then number three is that other part of energy too. You talked about your son. He was really intentional when he walked into a room about the energy he was bringing in a room. And imagine if every one of us, in every room we walked into, were intentional about, what's the energy I'm bringing to this room? What's the energy I'm bringing to this interaction? And I do this for a living, and I think about that every day. And I still don't bring the right energy into 100% of my conversations. I strive to, but there's sometimes where I'm tired or something else and I don't get there. But guess what I do? I confront that the next day and I'm like,
Yeah.
how can I bring that energy better in that way today? And if we did those three things, at the very least, we would be a little bit more on that path to greatness than we were yesterday.
I want to highlight the word be intentional. Like, we love to impact people, influence people, be an inspirational leader. And knowing that leadership always comes from the inside out. It is really defined and shaped by who you are and who you are becoming. The word intentionality is the key. Are you intentional about, like you mentioned, your mission? We live our mission, but are we intentional about putting our mission into words so that we actually really reveal to ourselves what our mission is? Because that will make us more intentional. We talked about fun. I think fun and focus, if you separate the two things, which we tend to do both at home, where we take the focus off and maybe only fun, and at work, it's only the focus, we will not never be in a place of well-being. So be intentional about it needs to be meaningful, it needs to be purposeful. That accelerates my greatness. And that is the power tool I have to accelerate someone else's greatness. So that was the thing that I want to highlight in your three items. I want to thank you for this half-hour plus podcast that we finally recorded. And I really want to thank all of our listeners who stay tuned in to the end. And I really trust something resonated with you. If not, I will ask you to listen to it again, because there has been a few powerful awakening moments that we so much need for who we are, and you deserve it. I deserve it to find my greatness, find my life's purpose in everything I do. So just leave your comments about what has impacted you, what you've heard that's really will be part of your journey. And if you can't wait for next week's podcast, then I really invite you to check out the Alt Dialogue, because you are invited to continue the conversation with other visionary leaders who really want to pioneer and ponder the authentic leadership transformation question that's emerging to them and will shape their leadership for the future. Just DM future, and I will make sure you get the right information to join the Alt Dialogue and be